Hello. I'm making a video back at this other house on the internet, and I made myself a lip gloss today. I don't know if that shows. A very nice lip gloss with the color of cinnamon. I put cinnamon on it in it. So I had an old I had to use up rests. I had an old sunblock stick that is for the lips and the face. I have two of those that I bought a long time ago, and then long time ago I already refilled it with my own self-made sunblocker. And since that had been sitting for many years, my self-made sunblocker, I think the commercial one would never get bad. I have the feeling. But the self-made sunblocker doesn't have all the preservatives or any kind of softener or something in it. It's just completely natural stuff. So it's oil and beeswax. That's all it is. So, and maybe some pigments from red beads or red kaolin clay or cinnamon, something like this. Or I might put white kaolin clay in it, also for the color and also the texture. So these kind of things I use in it, all natural, and that works the best. So cinnamon, if I put that here, it would probably break out a little bit, but on the lips it doesn't. So cinnamon has some oils in it that might irritate the skin if you have it too concentrated, but I put cinnamon powder in it that I use in my baking goods and in my tea sometimes. I put a little bit of that in, just a little pinch of that, and that created a really nice color, very almost not noticeable. This very nice natural color. And I put diatomaceous earth in it, so a little bit olive oil to loosen up the old sunblocker that I had to take out of that stick, that dispenser stick. And so then it all dissolved again and loosened up. And I've already done that a few times. I don't know how good that is, but I use like the minimum heat on the stove. I just put it on melt. That's all I have to do, and then it melts together into a really, really nice consistency. And then I pour it back into these lipsticks, lip balm sticks, sunblocker sticks that are a little bit elongated. And then I realize I put too much olive oil in it. It is too soft, but it doesn't matter. I'm not gonna redo it now. So once that's done, I'm gonna have to throw them away probably. So, but no, I'm not gonna redo it now. It's now like a very soft, squishy lip gloss texture, and it's okay. It works. I can use it. It's all right. It doesn't come out as a solid lipstick, so because I just put too much olive oil in it. But that's perfectly fine for a lip gloss, so that works very well. And I made myself my own creation perfume oil. I wished I could share this because it smells heavenly. Very, very heavenly. That's amazing. It smells amazing. And I made that hat a long time ago already. I made it a little bit tighter here to fit better. And I had to do some work on this here. I had to make this wider because I like this so much. It's actually a dress. It's a polo dress that comes way over the hips, and I love those. I love those so much. They also have them from Lacoste, but Lacoste, they're like $100 or more for each polo shirt. I have to be frugal, so the stuff that doesn't fit me anymore, I do altering, seamstress altering, and I make it wider, and I also put my blue gauze on it with fabric paint, which is very, very nice, glossy acrylic type of fabric paint. I love it. One can see this is already getting stained, but that's okay. It's alright. And I made myself, after the flu, or even during the flu, I had made myself, that took me like over a month. I made myself an apron, and I'm gonna eventually show that apron when I make an apple pie. And I'm planning on making an apple pie pretty soon. Probably, I don't know, but we might go on the trip now, and then after the trip, somewhere in November, probably, I'm gonna make an apple pie with all of these amazing apples on the tree. Red apples. They're very, very tart, very sour, but they make very, very good baking good apples. Very, very nice. And also, I made myself an oatmeal earlier, and I cut up an apple from this apple tree that had fallen. I guess a rat probably made that fall down. The rats, they go on the apple tree, and they're very, very acrobatic, and they climb on a very narrow branch, and they climb. I don't know why. They're very choosy with the apples. They don't take the next apple. No, they go all the way down that branch, and then they hang down, I guess, by the tail, and they grab an apple that is as far out of their reach as possible. And then they chew on that apple. And sometimes the weight of the rat makes the apple fall down. And then it already has been chewed on. But I don't care, I cut that part off. And then I cut the apple into very small pieces, and I put them, it's like a handful of apple pieces, I put it into my oatmeal. And I either put it in raw, mix it in after it had been in the microwave oven, or you can also microwave it, and then it has the extra flavor of apple pie. So when the pieces get heated up, they have apple pie flavor. And I like either way. I guess raw is probably always the best. So there's a couple of things that I have on my mind. I want to mention that 2 people died that were extremely, infinitely good-hearted people. Jane Goodall and Robert Redford. Okay, so those were wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people, and they are amazing souls. Okay, and they lived to be very old, both of them, and died in peace. And that's wonderful when someone dies in peace. Okay, so a lot of people don't. Okay, and those are the ones I feel sorry for, the ones that don't die in peace. So I think, and Jane Goodall, she looked really good until her last days. I mean, until the very last day, she looked really, really good. I watched an interview I think yesterday I watched an interview. They said that someone said the last interview that she gave, and already at age 91, and she still looked really, really good for that age. I mean, I'm very surprised. I guess, she lived by passion. She lived by compassion, particularly. She lived by love, by kindness, by generosity. And that in itself is such a wholesome energy that people can get very old with a lifestyle like this and still look very good. So, and now that's a real role model for me. And so is Vivienne Westwood, who also died. Vivienne died about 2 years ago, on December. And that was very sad also, because Vivienne Westwood is my number one role model. An amazing person, courageous, outspoken. She was a little bit brainwashed, as many liberals, particularly older liberals, are a bit brainwashed. So some of them are quite a lot brainwashed. And I don't say that with any kind of resentment. I know that Jane Goodall, I can't really say what Jane Goodall believed, but in that last interview, the guy completely exploited this amazing woman for a corporate agenda propaganda message. So, and that makes me very sad when people like that are so good, or people like Greta Thunberg, for example, perfect example, young or old, so that are totally hijacked and used for the corporate agenda, George Soros type of agenda. That makes me very sad. And now I do know that global warming is absolutely real. Okay, that is not some kind of George Soros invention or anything. No, George Soros hijacks that situation and tries to use that for his political agenda. Okay, that's what's unfortunate about it. Okay, so, but other than that, global warming is happening, and it is caused by human commerce. Okay, I have to say it. There were other root races before the human, and they've done exactly the same thing. And there was a research science team. They went with their. They have a submarine, deep sea submarine type of vessel, not very large, not like a submarine really, really large where a lot of people. It's just like for basically maybe 2 people to sit in it, and they use those in the Mariana Trench, and they use that in the Gulf of Mexico. And I just continue to say Gulf of Mexico because I don't see any point whatsoever to change the name of that ocean. Okay, it's been the Gulf of Mexico for a very long time. Why change the name? I mean, if there was a meaning to that, changing that name, I guess some people think there is a meaning to it or something. But I mean, it's okay. Gulf of America. this is all America. Okay, North America, Mesoamerica, South America, it's all the Americas. Okay, this is basically one continent. Okay, and yeah, for that, okay, I understand that we can call it Gulf of America, but it's had this name, Gulf of Mexico, for so long that I don't see the point in changing it. So I'll just continue to say Gulf of Mexico, I guess, until I get used to the other name. It doesn't matter which name I use. It really doesn't matter. It's a beautiful ocean, and I love all the land masses around it, whether it is United States or Mexico or South America that border onto this ocean. Okay. But inside of that gulf, so obviously there was a long time ago, there was a very large meteor that struck that coastline and created that gulf. And flooded. I think this is one of these deluges that were caused by this. One of these deluges, these great floods that happened in prehistoric times, they were caused by this particular meteor that struck there, and partly the coastal area and also into the ocean, and caused a major flooding and movement of these tectonic plates also, and caused a lot of stuff to move and flood out, and entire landscapes were shifted by that. So it must have been absolutely catastrophic, and I don't know how many living beings suffered from that and died from that. It must have been horrific. But it is a possibility that this had caused the extinction of Atlantis. Atlantis used to be a landmass full of wealth and all of that. But people became corrupt, and people started to do commerce, and they created actually plastic particles. So, and this is the most bizarre thing that scientists want to ignore. A team of scientists wanted to explore very, very, very deep rooted and located earth sedimentation layers, and they took one of these submarine vessels. I guess they took one of them that doesn't have people in it because it's too dangerous, because it goes too far down. And as it was descending, the animals looked weirder and weirder and weirder, descending for miles down into that gulf. Weirder and stranger animals like my flying spaghetti monster that I have around my neck. I am not kidding that there are beings like that deep in the ocean. And then it finally descended onto the ground, which was just like a sandy mud, and there wasn't anything, there was not much growing there. Actually, it was just sandy mud. And suddenly the camera sways over, and there is something that sits there about this size like a children's toy. Yellow, bright yellow, with bulging eyes. A children's toy. And they go, "What is that? A children's toy?" No, that's a type of sea urchin. But it had eyes, so some kind of octopus related animal, like the mix between octopus and sea urchin, or anemone or something, some kind of animal in there. And it had also a strange texture, like knobs and stuff, and was kind of round, like a toy hedgehog in yellow. That's what was sitting there suddenly in this vastness of ocean mud on the very floor of this enormous gravitational pressure and water pressure that is on top of it. So, but it has evolved that way. If you were to take that out and bring it to the surface, it would explode, because it's not evolved to be further up on the surface. So they have evolved to be in this enormous water pressure that is weighing down on this living being. Unbelievable what kind of beings are there. But anyway, so it's a beautiful story, and I've seen the photos of it. Absolutely gorgeous. So on one of those exploration missions, they have probed into the ground and into, I think also into a wall that's kind of like more vertical, so probably somewhere along the side also, where the meteor was going down into it, because then the meteor was basically freeing up debris past some layers on the earth that would normally not be exposed. Layers on the earth, inside of the earth, that had been just completely debris over and over again for millions and millions of years. Who knows, maybe even 100 or 300 million years. But what's very, very, very strange about this, that I think the scientific community in general does not want to acknowledge, is that this one particular research team, they went there with a probe that is very, very long. And they drilled this probe into it, and the probe opens up at a specific depth or something, So the probe has a vacuum inside, and it opens up at the end at a specific depth, and then they go further in, and then the probe basically draws in that sedimentation layer into its tube. And so when they figured they had enough of the test, the sample material, and the probe closes up again, they bring it back up onto the ship, onto the research ship, and then on the research ship they are releasing the material inside of that probe tube, and they see there, I guess maybe 100 feet of debris pulled into that tube, and then as it comes out, they can see the different layers that have layered over, and then something like a meteorite can basically dive into these layers and free that up and show it in a vertical form. So, but if it's submerged in water, then the water, of course, washes away on that vertical wall of that very, very large ocean pond, if you want to call it. And then you can't see that much if you're diving there. So you have to use the probe to go into that in order to see what kind of other sedimentation layers are there. So they did chemical analyses on that sedimentation material, and they found out that like a very, very long time ago, millions of years, 200 million years or something. I don't have the exact numbers now, so you have to research this. But it was prehistoric, and they find a layer in there that showed radioactive particles, such as plutonium and other ones, and other radioactive components, even components that have never existed on Earth as people thought before they have done nuclear experiments. The humans have done nuclear experiments, and they thought, oh, so there are certain molecular structures that are completely new because of these experiments. But then they find some of those embedded in sedimentation layers that are apparently from several 100,000 or several 100 million years back. Okay, so maybe several 100,000 million, I don't know, but yeah, let's say 150 million years back. So how does that material get into that sedimentation layer? So there are different theories on it that are completely ignored and rejected, of course, because scientific community does not want to acknowledge that there have been root races of humanoid beings before us, okay, that are not related to us at all. Okay, they're related to us maybe in form of, let's say, our ancestor with them would be a slug. Okay, it's shocking, but it's there. Okay, and they evolved, and Helena Petrovna talked about this also. So she got downloads of information coming into her brain from what she thinks is the ether, the Akashic records, and this was told to her that there were these other root races that have evolved before the human has evolved. From an ancestor we have with them that was extremely rudimentary. So that dates back, let's say, maybe 1 billion years back. Okay, so that is a possibility, okay? And then they wiped themselves out because they did they came to that technological ability stage. They did experiments that they didn't know what would come out of it, real reckless, just as humans have done with nuclear tests. And then they wiped themselves out, the entire root race. So, and this apparently has happened a couple of times on Earth already, dating all the way back to the entire evolution on Earth, on the Earth's evolution, on the Earth's existence. Okay, so that goes to show that these evolutionary developments are actually they're very gradual, of course, but they can, if funneled into a specific direction through circumstances, let's say through necessity, right? The real smart ones that figure out how to do telepathy, they will pass on their genes because they are surrounded by mountain ranges. And that's the only way they can communicate. And this is what happened in Tibet, for example. Okay, so those kind of things happen in evolution. And people think, oh, that doesn't exist. That it absolutely exists. Telepathy is now beginning to be acknowledged more widely, also because there's no way to ignore it anymore. That you can't ignore it. And there are much stranger things also that can also not be ignored. Okay, there are very, very strange things that people thought could never exist, but they do. Okay, and then ETs came, and there's evidence for that throughout history, and they altered a personal lineage. They altered a specific lineage of a smarter animal, not necessarily only with the human lineage, but also the ones before, and they altered stuff there and then took them onto another trajectory of evolution and sped up the evolutionary process with that. So all of this is there. This is not acknowledged by most scientists, but it will be in the future. So I am reading about all of this. I used to be very skeptical. The more I learn about it, the more it fits into the puzzle, the large puzzle picture. Okay, the more it fits into it. A long time ago, I was like, Garden Eden, okay, the creation story. How do they come up with something like that? So it's just a fairy tale. No, I get more and more information from science also. And suddenly, these pieces come into place of the big puzzle picture. Okay, the Garden Eden was a gene splicing, gene modification project. That's what it was, conducted by very advanced ETs that came here. And they took the very rudimentary ape being, the most evolved ape at that time. That's on our lineage, right? You can't call them human yet. Okay, so they took those, and they looked like they had ape jaws, not even like a Neanderthal. You can see the Neanderthal is like between the ape and the human, much more protruded jaw. But the ape had a real protruded jaw. Okay, so there's an evolution happening. Okay, we come from an animal with a snout, a long snout, and that's a fact. Okay, so and then they evolved quite far, I guess. Some of them also on their own became smarter, larger brain. The jaw went in a bit more, and then they had these ape people. That's what I would call them, because all animals are people. So these were ape people on our lineage. They had a big monkey jaw, actually, real big mouse, so like a horse almost, and much more like a chimpanzee, but was already bipedal. And the ETs called them ape people. That's how they call them. They painted them. There are hieroglyphic inscriptions and rock carvings and paintings that are depicting this. So that a lot of people didn't really have a very good explanation for. They thought, oh, this is just invented. No, no, no. These things that we see from the past that have survived through all of these ages that we can see now, these stories, these inscriptions, these carvings into stone and wood, there is just there's a paradise of that in India. Praveen Mohan, I think his name, Mohan. Praveen Mohan is a researcher in this field. He lives in India and he goes to these temples all the time and shows that. And he's been censored also, which is really ridiculous to censor people like this that ask questions. Who is interested in censoring this information? So the underground people that are trying to keep us ignorant? Is that what it is? That's probably what it is. But you can see the inscriptions. You can see this all over the place. And not just in India, but in places far away from India that date approximately to the same era in history. So places that, the continents shifted, of course, and that's why they are very similar animals on either side of them, because they used to be, that the land masses were together. But when it comes to these inscriptions, there were beings living very, very far apart, smarter beings, and then ETs that came to Earth that had the technology to travel in a very short amount of time from one place to another. And they did settlements in very specific locations that created some kind of communication net grid. And they also did the pyramids that were gathering sunlight in this specific diamond formation net grid all the way around the planet, and they communicated also through an internet, as I talked about this before. And they have taken, because they themselves didn't have a very large gene pool that they brought with them from outer space. So they'll come here, let's say they come here with 100 people. That is not a very large gene pool to proliferate their own genes. So what they were hoping to do is take these ape people, inject their own DNA into it, and that can, because obviously if they mated with these ape people, the chances are very, very high that their body fluids would not be recognized by the female, whether that the female is the ET or the ape person, right? So that would not be recognized as sperm, as something to take into the egg, right? So the egg doesn't even recognize that, doesn't go into the egg. So if you take two completely different species, horse and human, that would not be recognized, okay? And don't do that to female horses. I talked about this before. There are people that do this. Don't do it to female horses or donkeys. Don't do this. It's immoral. It's unethical. And it can kill them. It can kill the female animal, okay? Because if they get overloaded with that stuff, it can cause a toxic shock. Okay? I have to say this again and again and again, intermittently, because I don't know who watches my video. Just in case someone watches my video who had been doing this. Okay, I don't know who all comes across the different videos on YouTube. I mean, chances are very slim that someone like that would see my videos. But if you are someone like this, quit it right now. Okay, you're killing that animal. You can't do that, and that has happened. A man has, and he was like, and all of a sudden she fell over and was dead. He didn't know why. Well, he's been banging her for years. At some point, her immune system was just completely overwhelmed. Okay? That's when the body goes into toxic shock and they can die. It's awful. It's really awful. Okay? Don't do that. So it has to be the same species, obviously. And the ETs, advanced ETs, they knew all of that, of course. So maybe they may have even tried here and there, and maybe they may have looked not that different or what. I don't know. I don't know what kind of ETs came here, but there were ETs that looked like the people you see in Finland and Sweden. Okay, and they're called Pleiadians and tall whites. So I guess Pleiadians and tall whites are two different species, but they look similar. The tall whites are just taller. So the Pleiadians are already very tall. The men can get to 7 feet tall, and I guess the tall whites get to be 8 feet or even 10 feet tall. So, and I heard stories that there are some of those that are still existing, that have come here a very long time ago, and that live in underground spaces out there in the desert in the United States. And a guy met them. The guy was working for the military. He was stationed there, and he was there to document the weather patterns, and he saw them, and he was absolutely terrified of that. But that, of course, changed his entire belief about the world, as you can imagine. And that's why the corporate agenda cabal does not want people to see them. Because if too many people see them, then these people will have to question their religion. They will have to question what they were told. Okay, the propaganda. They'll have to question everything. Physics too, everything they learned in school. Okay, and the cabal doesn't want that, because then they can't control them anymore. If they question everything, how can they control them, right? They can only control them mentally with mind control. If they tell them propaganda, feed propaganda into their brains, and keep them ignorant, and keep them rigidly dependent on a specific storyline and history storyline. So, and then with that they can control them beautifully, just the way they want to. George Soros and whatever their names are, Rockefeller, Rothschild, Chinese bankers. Okay, so there's about 100 people, as Elon Musk said, that are behind the scenes, that are not known, and that are string holder cabal people, that are basically running everything for their financial and power advantage. They want power over others, to control and to have ultimate leverage over, like a chessboard. If I play chess and the pawns on the chess game started to say, no, I'm not going to let you move me one step forward. I'm going to jump sideways, but diagonal. the pawn is not even allowed to do that unless no, the pawn is not allowed to do this as long as I remember this here accurately. Remember this, the pawn is only allowed to step one step forward. Yeah, that's all the pawn is allowed to do, only one step forward across the entire chess game. Yeah. And another thing the pawn is allowed to do, if there is the king, next to him, then the pawn is allowed to cut down the king. So I haven't played chess in such a long time, so I don't even remember it correctly probably. But I think the pawn is allowed to kill the king if the king is diagonal from him. One step diagonal, either direction. Then the pawn is allowed to snatch him away. So other than that, he can only walk forward. He can't kill someone forward. He can only kill one step in either direction, diagonal. That's how I remember it now. So that's all the pawn can do. But let's say the pawn decides to say to me, no, I'm not gonna play by your rules. I question all of that. Okay, you can't use me as a pawn anymore. Well, then I don't have any leverage anymore over the chess game, right? Then it makes the chess game my recreational time that I have, my fun time I have with the chess game. It makes the chess game not usable for that purpose anymore, at least, I'll have fun with it looking at the chess figures doing their own thing. So I can do that too. And if I'm a good Samaritan, I can give them food and I can support them and let them have freedom of speech and freedom of action. So that's the right way to do it. That's what the white hats are doing. That's what the good Samaritans are doing. But the string holders underground, they don't want the pawn and the queen and any of them really to sway out of their designated tasks. Okay, it's their towers, their military towers or whatever, the tower that can wipe someone off going straight up or sideways. Always horizontal. So what if the tower says, no, I'm going to jump like the horse now, or I'm going to fly up into the air? Then you can't use it anymore. And that's what the Cabal is using us for. They use us like chess figures. And they want you ignorant so that they can keep on using you like their chess horse or chess runner or tower or even queen, right? Or pawns. Most of them are pawns. So, yeah, that's why they suppress all of this information. Okay? That's really the whole reason behind it. Why they put ridicule into the world to address at anyone who is a flying saucer person. Okay, so Paul is a perfect example. He's not a Christian. He questioned that, but then he fell hook, line, and sinker into science, atheism. That's another group that can be brainwashed beautifully, right? I mean, but they can't be brainwashed as well as someone who is a fundamentalist in any kind of extreme religion like Christian religion, Judaism, Islam. Okay. So they're the most manipulated of all. Don't let them do it to you anymore. That's my appeal to the world. Don't let them do it anymore. The time is now for us to take our power back, to think for ourselves and question other people's agendas. And some of these agendas, yes, they go conspiratorially far. If this is the truth, that doesn't make me just as a conspiracy theorist. It makes me a conspiracy factist. Okay, that's all there is to it. With my tin hat, it doesn't have tin in it, so I'll never wear a tin hat. No matter what happens, I have a tin pillow. No, not tin, but it's a mylar, like from the weather balloons, like the stuff that the ET brought. And I believe that the Roswell crash, that's when that mylar, the mylar production, that's when it miraculously started. People will take credit for that for themselves. I invented. No. You got that from the ETs for you, and that was not a weather balloon. That was a spaceship that was made out of that material, and particularly amazing, sturdy and lightweight at the same time. So, yeah, they have you can buy this material. It's a silver material, and that wards off radiation. They stole that from the ETs, the patent of it. They started to make it in mass amounts, and yeah, we bought some of these blankets. You had 10 of those Mylar blankets for $10 or whatever, and I took one out and I wrapped a pillow into it. I duct taped it and I put it into a pillowcase, and I have it under my computer when I'm on the internet. Yeah, so that's as far as I go with tin hatter activity, because I don't want the radiation from the wireless antenna in the computer, this back and forth radiation and information exchange. So energy, okay, and so the less radiation, the better we are off. Okay, so, and I recommend to other people to do the same. But anyway, I am wrapping this video up now. I feel like my butt is starting to hurt. I see a hummingbird, yay! And they are drinking the nectar from those amazing honeysuckle blossoms that are popping up there. I believe that honeysuckle is actually related to the equatorial ylang-ylang. I think that's related to it. The ylang-ylang is just much longer, like the name says, lang, very long, much longer, and has an even sweeter and even more dramatic, amazing aroma. But these honeysuckle flowers, some people they're not into it. Some people think that's too heavy. It can't be heavy enough for me, the scent. I mean, the scent is just heavenly. So, peace and love for all living beings.